That's an area that gives security practitioners, or security vendors, I should say, a bad name. We've got to do 4 things. And it's a call I've heard over and over again this week. We've got to start supporting standards if we're going to the cloud. How we interrelate, how we work to make your choices better and easier to integrate. If we're going to build security solutions, they've got to be more usable. Stuff today is still too hard to use. We've got to make it part of the computing environment and drive it very, very deep into the stack. We've got to automate it. Art Coviello got up and said automation is going to be a critical piece of this. How do we automate things and do things well that computers do? They're going to have to do this because you're not going to be able to manually manage a cloud. It's going to have to be automated. Authentication is going to have to happen automatically. Encryption is going to have to happen automatically. Scanning technologies are going to have to be used automatically. All of this stuff is going to have to be interrelated. And by the way, I don't make a bunch of those things. Some of my competitors make some of those things, and some of my co-opetition partners make those, and some third parties make those. How are we going to come together as a set of vendors and talk through that and agree that if you're going to get the benefits of cloud computing, we've got to solve those technical problems that have plagued us all the way back to the mainframe days? And then last but not least, I bring it up again, we're going to have to solve this trust model problem. How are we going to know who to trust? Because today the hierarchical trust models that were dominant during the PKI era of the 90s, hierarchical trust is not going to work in a cloud-based environment. The web of trust that we popularized at PGP will not work by itself in that environment. How are we going to get the large infrastructure vendors to agree on a trust model that you can be assured if you put your data there, you'll get your data back safely? So what have we learned? Basically, we've learned this. Access control, security and data motion and rest, and federated trust are going to be critical questions you need to answer before you go to the cloud. It's a picture of look before you leap. 2 people have told me today, take this to your CIO or take this to the people who are demanding that you go to the cloud to save money. Because this is really what you're doing. You're jumping off from a point that you think you know, that today isn't even that secure, to the unknown. Because until you have the questions answered that I've raised today, you can't, with a lot of trust, put your company at risk, put your data at risk, put your customers at risk, and ultimately, in some cases, put nation-state versus nation-state cyber capabilities at risk. You can't do that. With all the promise of the TCO of the cloud, with all the capabilities and promise it brings, these are real-world issues, and if we look back, they've plagued every era of computing that we've been in. And I'll leave you with this one last thought. If you knew you were going to fail, would you try? Well, I'll tell you this. I've been in the business for, it'll be 30 years next year. And I can tell you this. In every era of computing that I've lived in since 1981 when I joined Xerox in the Ethernet division of Xerox, the people in the IT community and now the security community have risen to the challenge. I believe if we can plan before we go and plan well before we implement, we have a chance to make the cloud the next great era of computing. Thank you very much.